The spirit flame hallowed body has appeared? Hallowed venerable Styx shook his head and heaved a long sigh. Back then, I had already destroyed the spirit flame hallowed body, and I didn't impart it to anyone. Looks like fate has its own ideas. Perfected deity Easterly must have hidden it back then. Perhaps he also wanted to find someone fated to perfect his divine ability. Who obtained the spirit flame hallowed body? An ordinary perfected lord called Lin Feng obtained the spirit flame hallowed body. This young fellow is impressive. As a perfected lord, he cultivated the spirit flame hallowed body, and even killed a perfected deity above his level. TSK, he accomplished the feat of slaying a god. Now, it has already spread like wildfire throughout the 7 holy cities of chaos and in the entire chaos. There are even some old fellows who have designs on him. Styx, aren't you going to summon him personally? Hallowed venerable Styx shook his head and said, There's no need to summon him. It's his opportunity to have obtained the spirit flame hallowed body. Moreover, it's probably not just thanks to the spirit flame hallowed body that he can kill a perfected deity as a perfected lord. Even if ordinary people obtain the spirit flame hallowed body, it's not that easy to cultivate it. Everything is predestined. Let nature take its course. Then, hallowed venerable Styx closed his eyes. Hallowed venerable Prima Mobile severed the connection and retracted his gaze as well. Hallowed venerable Prima Mobile knew that hallowed venerable Styx still could not let go of perfected deity Easterly. However, although hallowed venerable Styx did not summon Lin Feng immediately, hallowed venerable Prima Mobile knew what hallowed venerable Styx meant. This young fellow can be considered someone fated to acquire the opportunity. I hope you can really perfect the spirit flame hallowed body. This way, you will have your own great opportunity. To hallowed venerable Prima Mobile, this was just a minor matter. It was a triviality among all the trivialities that he had witnessed over a long period of time. Killing a perfected deity above one's level? A magnificent feat of slaying a god? In the eyes of a hallowed venerable, it was nothing much. However, since hallowed venerable Styx had shown his stance, even if he did not personally summon Lin Feng, all the top-notch perfected deities who knew the origins of the spirit flame hallowed body would not have any designs on Lin Feng. With a chaotic hallowed venerable involved, no one dared to act rashly. To Lin Feng, this inadvertently saved him a lot of trouble. Ha ha ha! Perfected Lord Lin, Brother Lin, you don't mind me calling you that, do you? In the manner, Lin Feng was smiling as he welcomed an old acquaintance, Perfected Lord Long. Perfected Lord Long had just exited seclusion today, but he rushed to Lin Feng's manor immediately. When Lin Feng saw Perfected Lord Long again, he realized that the aura on Perfected Lord Long body had already doubled in power. It was obvious that he had comprehended more chaotic rules. He had even improved his body-tempering divine ability. He could be said to have gained a lot. Perfected Lord Long, you've gained a lot from your seclusion this time. Congratulations. Lin Feng also congratulated Perfected Lord Long with a smile. However, Perfected Lord Long shook his head and said, What are you congratulating me for? Actually, I did gain a lot from this seclusion and I improved a lot. I was even a little smug and was prepared to spar with Brother Lin after exiting seclusion. However, who would have thought that Brother Lin's improvement would be even faster, to the point of being incredible? After I exited seclusion and heard about Brother Lin's deeds, I almost couldn't believe them. Perfected Lord Long's eyes widened. He was indeed observing Lin Feng carefully from head to toe. As soon as he exited seclusion, he heard about Lin Feng's deeds. He had killed a perfected deity above his level, and slain a god in a magnificent feat. All of this almost dumbfounded him. He even felt that none of this sounded like the Lin Feng he knew. However, this news had long spread throughout the entire holy city of chaos. He could find out about it in detail with just a little asking around. It was indeed the Lin Feng he knew. Hence, after he exited seclusion, he rushed to Lin Feng's manor immediately, wanting to see for himself what had changed about Lin Feng. However, after sizing him up and observing him carefully, Perfected Lord Long was a little confused. Wasn't this the same Lin Feng he knew? He did not have the aura of a perfected deity either. Brother Lin, if the rumors outside are true, you can actually kill a perfected deity above your level and accomplish the feat of slaying a god. This is simply unbelievable. If not for the fact that you're indeed not a perfected deity, I would even suspect that you're the reincarnation of a perfected deity. In reality, perfected Lord Long was not the only one who was suspicious. Speculations about Lin Feng's true identity were already abundant in the outside world. There was a mainstream argument that Lin Feng might be the reincarnation of a powerful perfected deity. Perfected deities would also fall, just like perfected deity fortune. Once they fell, it was not impossible for their perfected spirits to reincarnate and slowly cultivate to the peak. However, if Lin Feng was really the reincarnation of a perfected deity, once his memories were awakened, and even his perfected spirit recovered to its original state, wouldn't comprehending the chaotic rules be a piece of cake? He should have become a perfected deity long ago, and there was no need to wait until now. However, Lin Feng was indeed only a perfected lord now. He had only comprehended 2 chaotic rules. Haha, perfected Lord Long, you must be joking. If I were really the reincarnation of a perfected deity, why would I need to rob the caravan of the Fortune Chamber of Commerce? I would already know the location of the holy cities of chaos and come here. Those are just groundless rumors. They're not worth mentioning. Lin Feng shook his head. Was it rumored that he was the reincarnation of a perfected deity? Even he himself felt that it was nonsense. Still, Lin Feng had indeed been very annoyed recently. As a perfected lord, he had killed a perfected deity above his level. His feat of slaying perfected deity swept through the entire chaos like a storm. The 7 holy cities of chaos had all heard of it. Some people even called Lin Feng the top perfected lord. With such great fame, many people naturally did not quite believe it. Some doubted him, while others admired him. Hence, people came to visit Lin Feng's manor almost every day, and it was extremely annoying. However, they were basically all perfected lords, and not a single perfected deity came. In fact, in secret, perfected deity fortune was already disdained and even scorned by all the perfected deities. Perfected deity had simply disgraced all the perfected deities. However, no matter what, it could not change the fact that Lin Feng, a perfected lord, had killed a perfected deity above his level, and accomplished the feat of slaying a god. By the way, Brother Lin, you're now known as the top perfected lord in the entire chaos. TSK. It's a little unbelievable just thinking about it. Back when I first met Brother Lin, I was still on the hallowed beast continent. At that time, Brother Lin was only the top perfected lord in the hallowed beast continent. I didn't expect Brother Lin to have already become the top perfected lord in the entire chaos in such a short period of time. Perfected Lord Long was indeed very emotional. Anyone who saw this change would find it somewhat unbelievable. It had to be known how vast the chaos was. How many hidden experts were there in the 7 holy cities of chaos? There were even many perfected lords who could take a few moves from a perfected deity's head-on, or retreat unscathed. However, no one could be called the top perfected lord. Only Lin Feng was undoubtedly the top perfected lord now. Of course, not everyone was convinced either. Lin Feng smiled weakly and said, "It's this title of the top perfected lord that has brought me so much trouble lately." If he had a choice, Lin Feng did not want the title of top perfected lord. It had caused him a lot of trouble, but he had not seen any benefits. How can the title of the top perfected lord be useless? Brother Lin, I've brought you good news this time. Perfected Lord Long stared at Lin Feng with a half-smile. Lin Feng actually found the title of top perfected lord, which so many people dreamed of, troublesome. It had to be known that at this moment, Lin Feng's reputation even exceeded many perfected deity by far. Good news. Lin Feng looked at perfected Lord Long curiously. He had clearly just exited seclusion. What good news could there be? This is definitely good news. I heard that Brother Lin is collecting chaotic spirit flames. That's right. I'm indeed collecting chaotic spirit flames, but I haven't found anything. Lin Feng shook his head. Ever since he obtained the 34th chaotic spirit flames, he had thought of a method, and that was to release the news and collect all kinds of chaotic spirit flames. Of course, those 34 types of chaotic spirit flames were excluded. Right now, there were only two ways for Lin Feng to increase his strength. One was to continue comprehending the chaotic rules. Currently, Lin Feng was comprehending the chaotic rule of space. Once he successfully comprehended it, he could make up for his current greatest weakness as Perfected Lord Spatial Warp. As long as he had Spatial Warp, even if Lin Feng still could not become a perfected deity for the time being, with the powerful spirit flame's divine ability and the help of the chaotic rule of space, Lin Feng was not inferior to any perfected deity. The chaotic rule of space was difficult to comprehend. Even with the chaotic origin stone, it was not something that could be comprehended successfully overnight. Lin Feng could only focus on the spirit flame hallowed body. He knew that with every additional type of chaotic spirit flames, his strength would increase substantially. Unfortunately, even the major chambers of commerce did not have more chaotic spirit flames. Hence, although Lin Feng released the news, he found nothing. Haha, I have news here. A perfected lord has invited Brother Lin to a gathering. If it goes well, he will offer a chaotic spirit flame. Oh? Really? Of course. Those perfected lords were intimidated by Brother Lin's reputation and did not dare to look for you directly. However, it's still very easy to investigate our relation, so they came to me. Lin Feng frowned and pondered carefully. Lin Feng was not surprised that others knew about his relation with perfected Lord Long. He was already famous in the chaos. It would be stranger if they could not find out. Perfected Lord Long, do you know why they invited me? Lin Feng did not believe that the other party would give him a type of chaotic spirit flames for nothing. Everyone knew that he needed chaotic spirit flames now. They were extremely precious. How could they give it to him so easily? Yes, actually, I've also learned a little about the situation, but I don't know the details. It seems to be about a new chaotic continent. However, no one knows where this chaotic continent is. A new chaotic continent? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He vaguely understood the other party's intention. However, be it the chaotic spirit flames or the new chaotic continent, there were only benefits and no downsides for Lin Feng. All right, let's go take a look then. Haha, Brother Lin is straightforward. Perhaps I can also obtain some benefits by following Brother Lin this time. A smile appeared on perfected Lord Long's lips. Then he stood up and left the manor with Lin Feng. It was in the holy city of chaos, a long distance away from Lin Feng's manor. It was just a small courtyard. There was an array set up, but it was not very advanced. Lin Feng could sense from afar that there seemed to be the auras of many chaotic perfected lords inside. Perfected Lord Long sent a message. Immediately, the door opened and a few chaotic perfected lords came out. The one in the lead wore a high crown and had a fair and beardless face. He looked like an emperor and had a dignified and nonchalant aura. Perfected Lord Lin, Perfected Lord Long. Excuse me for not coming out to welcome you. Perfected Lord Long also introduced this Yuan Zhengang to Lin Feng. He had really been an emperor before and was also a hegemon who dominated a region. He had already comprehended a total of 7 chaotic rules and cultivated 2 divine abilities, 1 body tempering and 1 rule tempering. In terms of strength, he was even stronger than Perfected Lord Long. Walking into the small courtyard, he realized that there were actually more than 10 perfected lords inside. All of them were shrewd and unfathomable. At the very least, every one of them was not inferior to Perfected Lord Long. This was almost the strongest batch of perfected lords that could be gathered in the holy city of chaos. As soon as these perfected lords saw Lin Feng, their gazes sized him up. Some showed unruliness, some showed a trace of admiration, and others showed a trace of doubt. In short, Lin Feng had seen too many of such gazes. It was really because he indeed caught a bit too much attention with the title of the top perfected lord now. If Lin Feng were a perfected deity, no one would question it. It was already an ironclad rule that perfected deities were above perfected lords. Even the proudest perfected lord would not offend a perfected deity. However, Lin Feng happened to be a perfected lord and not an ordinary perfected lord at that. He was the top perfected lord. Even though Lin Feng had accomplished the feat of slaying a god, seeing was believing. No one here had ever seen Lin Feng's feat of slaying a god. It was normal for them to have some doubts. However, Perfected Lord Yuan, who was the inviter, appeared very respectful. According to Perfected Lord Long, Perfected Lord Yuan had a type of chaotic spirit flames. Perfected Lord Lin, please take a seat. Perfected Lord Yuan extended his hand and offered Lin Feng the seat at the top. With Lin Feng's current reputation and deeds, it was understandable for him to sit at the top. Even though there was a trace of doubt, Lin Feng sat calmly. Ever since he accomplished the feat of slaying a god, the pressure in Lin Feng's heart had been released. There were no longer any perfected deities suppressing him from above. It was as if the world had suddenly opened up to him. Even Lin Feng's comprehension of the chaotic rule of space improved at a godly speed. Hence, his mentality was very calm now. Lin Feng naturally would not feign pleasantries. He sat directly at the head of the table and remained composed under those doubtful gazes. It's my honor that Perfected Lord Lin can come. I've long heard that Perfected Lord Lin killed a perfected deity above your level and accomplished the feat of slaying a god. Such an earth-shattering event is truly unprecedented and deeply inspiring. We perfected lords have cultivated diligently for tens of thousands of years, yet we tremble in fear and walk on thin ice. There seems to be a shadow looming over our heads all the time. And now, Perfected Lord Lin has broken this shadow for us. It turns out that even perfected lords can slay gods. I sincerely admire you. Yuan Jinggong's tone was sincere. He indeed admired Lin Feng from the bottom of his heart. Even though he was currently the strongest among these perfected lords, if one really wanted to name a top perfected lord, Yuan Jinggong was actually a strong competitor. However, ever since he learned about Lin Feng's deeds, he was convinced and no longer thought about being the top perfected lord. That was, unless one day he could also kill a perfected deity. But was this possible? The longer one cultivated, the more they would understand what's so terrifying about perfected deities. Killing a perfected deity above their level? It was just unbelievable. Lin Feng remained calm and said evenly, I heard that Perfected Lord Yuan has a type of chaotic spirit flames? That's right. It's the chaotic black flames. I traveled the chaos and obtained this from a very remote chaotic continent. Yuan Jinggong took out a sphere of flames. It was actually black and emitted a rich, scorching aura. One look and one could tell that it was extraordinary. Lin Feng's spirit flame hallowed body also seemed to grow restless. This meant that this black flame was indeed a chaotic spirit flame. Huh? A remote chaotic continent? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He could already tell the hidden meaning in Yuan Jinggong's words. Yuan Jinggong smiled and said, Perfected Lord Lin? You've guessed it too? That's right. I gathered the perfected lords this time because I have something to discuss with all of you. Yuan Jinggong swept his gaze over them, then said with a solemn expression, You may have already heard that I discovered a new chaotic continent. That's true. I did discover a new chaotic continent. In fact, I obtained these chaotic black flames from that continent. I gathered the perfected lords this time, because I'd like to ask for the aid of all the perfected lords to completely occupy that chaotic continent for ourselves. Boom! Everyone was stunned. Lin Feng more or less learned some information previously, and those perfected lords had also obtained some information. However, hearing Yuan Jinggong personally admit that there was indeed a new chaotic continent now, everyone was still incomparably shocked. Their minds went blank. What did a new chaotic continent signify? It signified infinite resources, countless top-grade chaotic prime crystals, and all kinds of rare treasures. In short, a chaotic continent was an endless source of wealth. However, some people were very clear-headed, so they asked cautiously, if it's really a new chaotic continent, why didn't Perfected Lord Yuan excavate it yourself? Why would you spread the news? That's right. Everyone also sobered up. If they asked themselves honestly and put themselves in his shoes, what would they do if they were the ones who discovered a new chaotic continent? They would definitely monopolize it themselves. An excavated chaotic continent was completely different from an unexplored chaotic continent. For example, the Incendium continent and the Hallowed Beast continent had actually been excavated. Lin Feng had gathered the resources of the entire Hallowed Beast continent, but how many top-grade chaotic prime crystals had he collected? They were even less than those from a small chaotic prime crystal mine in the Skywood continent. As long as there were chaotic prime crystal mines in a new chaotic continent, there would be thousands or even tens of thousands of top-grade chaotic prime crystals. How great would the benefits be? Forget about perfected lords, even perfected deities would fight for it at all costs. Why would they spread the news and even ask other perfected lords to share it? This did not make sense. Hearing this, Yuan Zhenggang could only let out a long sigh and smile helplessly. How can I not want to monopolize this great opportunity? In fact, in the past few thousand years, I've spent generously and even cultivated a second divine ability. That's a body-tempering divine ability. Has no one noticed anything? Could this be a cultivation resource you purchased with the top-grade chaotic prime crystals from that chaotic continent? Everyone was surprised. Divine abilities were divided into rule-tempering divine abilities and body-tempering divine abilities. Rule-tempering divine abilities were one thing. As long as one could comprehend the chaotic rules and study them to a profound level, they could successfully cultivate them. As for the body-tempering divine abilities, they would consume a large amount of cultivation resources. It was practically burning money. Look at Lin Feng, for instance. If he did not have a large amount of top-grade chaotic prime crystals, how could he cultivate the spirit flame hallowed body to the adept level? Hence, no one would believe that Yuan Zhenggang did not consume a large amount of cultivation resources to successfully cultivate a body-tempering divine ability from nothing. Perfected Lord Yuan nodded and said, "That's right. I've been secretly mining the top-grade chaotic prime crystals in the chaotic continent, and I've also benefited greatly. Originally, I wanted to keep mining, but there's no such thing as an impenetrable wall. A few days ago, I found out that a caravan had actually discovered that chaotic continent. Even though I paid a huge price to seal that chaotic continent with a divine array, since it was discovered, the other party would definitely get the perfected deities behind it to come over. When the divine array is broken, wouldn't the perfected deities know everything? Everyone understood. So this was the case. Of course, there was another way, and that was for Yuan Zhenggang to use the exact location of the chaotic continent as information. If he sold it to the secret tower, he could also obtain a considerable sum of top-grade chaotic prime crystals. However, Yuan Zhenggang was clearly unwilling to accept this. He had discovered the chaotic continent first, and he had to give it away just like that? All the perfected lords fell silent. They were overwhelmed with emotions and incomparably excited. How could they not be excited about a new and unexplored chaotic continent? Even if Yuan Zhenggang had mined it for thousands of years, Yuan Zhenggang was just one person. Forget about thousands of years, even if he mined it for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, he would not be able to mine much. Many perfected deities had mined a chaotic continent for tens of thousands of years after occupying it, and still had a lot of reserves left, never mind a mere perfected lord. Hence, the resources and wealth represented by this new chaotic continent were enough to tempt even a perfected deity. However, there was a very realistic question. Which caravan had discovered that new chaotic continent? Later, I investigated. It should be the 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce in Holy City Styx. A trace of solemnity appeared on perfected Lord Yuan's face. Clearly, this 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce was not simple. What? The 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce. If it's the 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce, things will be troublesome. Even perfected Lord Long had a solemn expression. What's so special about this 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce? Lin Feng had only been in the Holy City of Chaos for a short period of time. He did not even have a comprehensive understanding of the factions in Holy City Prima Mobile, let alone other holy cities of chaos. Perfected Lord Long explained, "The 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce is a medium-sized Chamber of Commerce in Holy City Styx. There are a total of 2 perfected deities in that Chamber of Commerce, and they are Perfected Deity 1,000-star and Perfected Deity All Desire. They both have considerable influence in Holy City Styx, and have more than 50 top-notch perfected lords under their command. As for ordinary perfected lords, there are countless. If the 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce finds out about that new chaotic continent, I'm afraid things will get difficult. That's right. The 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce controls more than 10 chaotic continents directly. Even ordinary perfected deities do not dare to compete with the 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce. At the thought of the power of the 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce, the other chaotic perfected lords all became dejected and basically gave up. Although the chaotic continent had countless resources, one had to be alive to excavate them. It was rumored that the 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce also possessed a secret technique to annihilate perfected spirits. It could kill every one of them with certainty. Under normal circumstances, after a perfected lord died, although they needed to reincarnate and cultivate again, they at least still had a chance. If even their perfected spirit was destroyed, they would really be annihilated, and would never have another chance. Oh? How are these two perfected deities compared to perfected deity Fortune, perfected deity Absolutist, and perfected deity Mystic Spirit? Lin Feng suddenly spoke, his tone sharp and revealing powerful confidence. Ha ha ha, everyone, this is why I invited perfected Lord Lin. So what if it's the 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce? So what if there are two perfected deities? Perfected Lord Lin is the top perfected lord, who retreated unscathed from the hands of 3 perfected deities, and even killed perfected deity Fortune who was above his level. What is there to be afraid of? Yuan Zhengang threw his head back and laughed aloud, revealing a trace of madness in his eyes. Swoosh! Everyone looked at Lin Feng. Be it doubts, disdain, or jealousy, no matter what they thought about it. At this moment, only Lin Feng could face a perfected deity head-on. He lived up to his title as the top perfected lord. Competing with perfected deities for a chaotic continent is simply insane. However, I really like such odds. Haha! How about you count me in? A top-notch perfected lord laughed aloud. That's right. I've already cultivated for 130 million years. I'm too old, and it's been too long, but I haven't improved at all. If I don't take a risk now, I'm afraid I'll never have a chance of becoming a perfected deity. Therefore, count me in. Haha, with the top perfected lord is here, so what if they're perfected deities? Count me in too. Hence, more and more perfected lords agreed to join, and follow Lin Feng and Yuan Zhengang for a wild ride. Yuan Zhengang was also very excited. He looked deeply at Lin Feng and said, Perfected Lord Lin, the reason I don't want to offer this new chaotic continent to those perfected deities is that those perfected deities have never placed us perfected lords on an equal footing. Even if we offer it, I won't have anything to do with it in the future. However, if perfected Lord Lin is willing to bring us to fight for this new continent, we are willing to establish the Mutual Assistance Alliance. With perfected Lord Lin as the alliance leader, we can unify our orders and increase our combat power. In the future, if we seize that new chaotic continent, perfected Lord will get 70% of the profits alone. Yuan Zhengang was also very bold. Not only was he willing to accept Lin Feng as the alliance leader, he was even willing to offer 70% of the entire chaotic continent's profits. It had to be known that apart from Lin Feng, there were still so many chaotic perfected lords who would share the remaining 30%. Even though some perfected lords had dissents, on careful thought they did not say anything. If it was occupied by other perfected deities, never mind 30%, mere perfected lords like them could forget about getting even 10%. Moreover, only through interest could everyone be bound together. 70%, a smile appeared on Lin Feng's lips. He was very satisfied. Not only was he satisfied with Yuan Zhengang's arrangement, 70% was only temporary. He was even more satisfied that after this action, the Mutual Assistance Alliance would probably be closely united, and the combat power they could unleash would be unimaginable. This was the embryonic form of a powerful faction. This Yuan Zhengang was not simple and was not simple at all. He was also an ambitious person. It was probably true that he wanted to seize the chaotic continent, and it was also true that he wanted to establish the Mutual Assistance Alliance and form a huge faction. However, so what if Yuan Zhengang was ambitious? After the Mutual Assistance Alliance was established, it would only be beneficial to Lin Feng. There were no disadvantages. As the alliance leader, even if Yuan Zhengang had some ulterior motives, it was still within control. Coincidentally, Lin Feng was also thinking of establishing a faction. Relying on Perfected Lord Ziyuan, Perfected Lord Empyrean, and the others alone was too slow, and it could not be formed in a short period of time. However, once this mutual assistance alliance was established, entirely composed of top-notch Perfected Lords, after it occupied a chaotic continent, its potential would be unimaginable. In the holy cities of chaos, without a powerful faction, it was impossible for even perfected deities to earn a large amount of top-grade chaotic prime crystals and acquire a large amount of cultivation resources. All right, since all the perfected lords are in agreement, we'll establish the Mutual Assistance Alliance and help each other to succeed in cultivation. Lin Feng's gaze instantly grew sharp. Originally, his aura was not obvious, but now, it emitted a domineering and powerful aura, above all the perfected lords. Greetings, Alliance Leader. At this moment, the Mutual Assistance Alliance was established. Immediately after, Lin Feng asked everyone to nominate Yuan Zhengang and Perfected Lord Long as the Alliance deputy leaders. Lin Feng also knew how to delegate authority. He only needed to be powerful and take up the title of Alliance Leader. Some specific management matters were naturally delegated to the two Alliance deputy leaders. Yuan Zhengang was very excited. Moreover, he had been planning this Mutual Assistance Alliance for quite some time. He had already thought through many regulations clearly. According to Yuan Zhenggang's suggestion, there were a total of 18 top-notch perfected lords in the Mutual Assistance Alliance, including Lin Feng. These were all the current members of the Mutual Assistance Alliance. Apart from Lin Feng and the two Alliance deputy leaders, the other 15 top-notch perfected lords all formed the Core Elders Council. The core elders of the Mutual Assistance Alliance had a lot of authority. Some major matters had to be discussed jointly by the Alliance leader and the core elders, and approved by the Core Elders Council. This was to firmly bind these top-notch perfected lords to the Mutual Assistance Alliance, forming a truly cohesive and powerful faction. If one wanted to become a member of the Core Elders Council, they had to be a top-notch perfected lord who had cultivated a divine ability or a perfected deity. This had actually already limited the number of core elders. It was impossible for there to be too many, at least not in a short period of time. Once many top-notch perfected lords were attracted, they might pay a price, but compared to the benefits of joining the Mutual Assistance Alliance, the price they paid would be insignificant. Of course, the Mutual Assistance Alliance was just in its embryonic form now. If they wanted to develop and expand, they still needed to build momentum. The target for building momentum had long been set. It was that new chaotic continent. No matter what, they had to seize this new chaotic continent. If they could not seize it and failed, the Mutual Assistance Alliance would naturally dissipate. Once they seized it, the Mutual Assistance Alliance's name would shake the holy cities of chaos. They would not have to worry about their future development at all. There's no time to lose. Perfected Lord Yuan. Where exactly is that chaotic continent? Lin Feng asked. All the perfected lords' gazes were also focused on Yuan Zhengang. Ha! The chaotic continent is here. Yuan Zhengang took out a chaotic map and pointed at a certain location on it. Alliance leader, that chaotic continent is also some distance away from Holy City Prima Mobile. In case something unexpected happens if we drag this out, let's set off immediately. If the perfected deities of the 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce arrive first, things will get troublesome. Lin Feng nodded as well. Perfected deities could warp space, but perfected lords like them could not warp space. In terms of traveling, they were much inferior to those perfected deities. All right, there's no time to lose. Let's set off immediately. Lin Feng took out the chaotic spaceship and quickly rushed to the new chaotic continent with all the current members of the Mutual Assistance Alliance. In the chaotic spaceship, Yuan Zhengang also handed the chaotic black flames to Lin Feng. Perfected Lord Yuan. Are there any other chaotic spirit flames on that chaotic continent? This was the question Lin Feng wanted to ask the most. However, Yuan Zhengang shook his head and said, I also came across the chaotic black flames by accident. I've always been sneaking around the chaotic continent and mainly mined top-grade chaotic prime crystals. Naturally, I couldn't search for chaotic spirit flames. However, that chaotic continent is a little special. There are many rare treasures. Perhaps there are other chaotic spirit flames. Lin Feng nodded. At least there was hope. Hence, Lin Feng did not delay and refined the chaotic black flames into the spirit flame hallowed body directly. Lin Feng was now certain that this spirit flame hallowed body was definitely a greater divine ability. As long as he continued to refine more chaotic spirit flames, its power would continue to increase. Hence, finding more chaotic spirit flames became Lin Feng's main direction for cultivation now. A new chaotic continent might really contain a few special types of chaotic spirit flames. Hence, Lin Feng also looked forward to this new chaotic continent. Swoosh! Lin Feng did not cultivate for long. He had only refined one type of chaotic spirit flames, and it did not take long. The chaotic black flames were a little special, and were also the 35th type chaotic spirit flames refined by Lin Feng's spirit flame hallowed body. However, once refined into the spirit flame hallowed body, it could only increase the power of the spirit flame hallowed body. Moreover, it would improve all aspects of power. However, the improvement was not as large as the 34th type of chaotic spirit flame. After all, the 34th chaotic spirit flames was a breakthrough that broke the shackles. It was naturally extraordinary. Even so, the power of Lin Feng's spirit flame hallowed body had also increased. At his level, even increasing the power of a divine ability by a little would be an impressive achievement. The divine abilities cultivated by many perfected deities required years of continuous accumulation in comprehending chaotic rules, and studying them bit by bit. If there were no other special opportunities or inspirations, the power of the divine ability would basically stagnate, and would never improve further. The only exception was if one day, they found new inspiration or understanding, and perfected their divine ability again. However, there were very, very few perfected deities who managed it. Over the long years, the inspiration of many perfected deities had even been worn down. Only the legendary greater divine ability could continue to incorporate chaotic spirit flames and increase its power, the way Lin Feng did. However, if the chaotic spirit flames reached their limit one day, Lin Feng would also stagnate like the other perfected deities. However, this might be a long time in the future. We're here. About 3 months later, the chaotic spaceship arrived at the location of the new chaotic continent. However, as far as the eye could see, this place seemed very easy to miss. The chaos was empty. Divine Array, open. Yuan Zhengang cast a series of hand seals. Then, a golden divine array vaguely appeared in the empty chaotic void. Everyone fixed their eyes on it, and saw that there was really a chaotic continent. Moreover, this chaotic continent was extremely huge. It should be a medium-sized chaotic continent. Yuan Zhengang explained, I paid a huge price to purchase this chaotic divine array spirit treasure. It doesn't actually have many defensive functions, but its concealment function is especially strong. Hence, ordinary perfected lords can't sense it. Then how did the caravan of the 1,000-Star Chamber of Commerce find out about this place? The 1,000-Star Chamber of Commerce must have an array master, or some special treasure that could sense that a divine array is set up here. However, although the defense of this divine array is not very strong, it can still withstand the attacks of most perfected lords. That's why it prevented people from the 1,000-Star Chamber of Commerce from entering the chaotic continent. Everyone nodded. Yuan Zhengang then opened the divine array. Lin Feng controlled the chaotic spaceship and quickly flew in. Swoosh! Lin Feng put away the chaotic spaceship, and the many perfected lords stood in the void. Looking down, there were densely distributed mountains and forests that stretched on without end. Even the air was filled with a rich fragrance. This was the smell of some kind of natural treasure permeating the air. Look! Are those ephemeral flowers? Heavens, it's rumored that it only blooms for a moment in 10,000 years. It has to be preserved or it will wither. Why are there so many ephemeral flowers here? There's also the void tree. It's said that there's a miraculous tree whose branches and leaves can grow deep into the void mezzanine and absorb special nutrients from it. Can survive in any environment. Even a branch of the void tree can be used to refine chaotic spirit treasures. An entire towering tree would be incredible. The many perfected lords were not ordinary perfected lords. but top-notch perfected lords. They could be considered experienced and knowledgeable, and were used to seeing the world. They had seen all kinds of rare treasures and chaotic continents, and had even seen many large chaotic continents. However, so many natural treasures on this chaotic continent was simply a sight rare to the extreme. According to my speculation, this chaotic continent should be at its nascent stage. When a continent is newly formed, it is at its peak with the most abundant resources and all kinds of rare treasures. In terms of value, it is not inferior to a large chaotic continent. Many perfected lords nodded in agreement with Yuan Jinggong's hypothesis. Such a miraculous environment could only be available to the first batch of lifeforms nurtured by those newly formed chaotic continents. By the way, since it's a chaotic continent that has just been formed, could there be intelligent lifeforms? Of course there are. However, they're not very strong. There are many natural chaotic lifeforms, and the strongest among them is only barely comparable to a chaotic spirit beast. It's naturally the hegemon of this chaotic continent, but in the eyes of top-notch perfected lords like us, it's not worth mentioning at all. Indeed, it was already shocking that natural living beings in this chaotic continent could give rise to lifeforms comparable to chaotic spirit beasts. However, before the divine abilities of top-notch perfected lords, they were completely insignificant. The ability to give rise to a chaotic spirit beast was enough to show that the potential of this chaotic continent far exceeded everyone's imagination. Everyone, we should prioritize the chaotic prime crystal mines first. Moreover, there are 3 rules. No one is allowed to mine or veins privately, let alone pick natural treasures at will. These all belong to the Mutual Assistance Alliance. Apart from concealment and defensive effects, this divine array also has the function of surveillance. As the Alliance deputy leader, Yuan Jinggong naturally had to make certain things clear. After all, this chaotic continent was too rich and had too many treasures. If everyone only cared about themselves, the Mutual Assistance Alliance would become a joke. Of course we know. Hence, the dozen or so top-notch perfected lords began to spread out to search for or veins. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. Be it or veins or natural treasures, they all belonged to the Mutual Assistance Alliance. As long as the Mutual Assistance Alliance could defeat the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce and occupy this chaotic continent, Lin Feng would have a share in everything here. If they were defeated by the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce, they could forget everything. However, taking this opportunity, Lin Feng had to find chaotic spirit flames. After all, chaotic spirit flames could increase Lin Feng's strength. The more strength he had, the more confident he would be in dealing with the perfected deities of the Thousand-Star Chamber of Commerce next. I'm going to search for the chaotic spirit flames. If anything unexpected happens, you can contact me. Lin Feng said a few words to perfected Lord Long and Yuan Jinggong, then flew into the distance to search for chaotic spirit flames on this new chaotic continent. This chaotic continent was much larger than the Hallowed Beast continent, as expected of a medium-sized continent. Lin Feng could sense that there seemed to be exuberant vitality everywhere. This was unique to a newly formed chaotic continent. Lin Feng was not searching for chaotic spirit flames blindly. His spirit flame hallowed body had gathered 35 types of chaotic spirit flames. He naturally had an extraordinary ability to sense chaotic spirit flames. Chaotic hallowed body. Lin Feng deployed the chaotic hallowed body. The sky was filled with flames. However, at the same time, the detection ability of the hallowed body was also increased to the extreme. Ha! Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. The spirit flame hallowed body actually detected something. Hence, Lin Feng quickly flew in the direction of the source. Swoosh! How fast was Lin Feng? It was not apparent in the chaos, but in this chaotic continent, he could arrive anywhere in the blink of an eye. Yes, this is the place. What Lin Feng saw was a cliff. A hazy mist filled the air. He could only see some birds and beasts, but he could not see any chaotic spirit flames. However, when Lin Feng scanned the cliff with his mental power, he was overjoyed. He quickly flew down the cliff. There was actually an underground river at the foot of the cliff, but in the underground river was a wrinkled chaotic beast. Its aura was also very powerful. It was a natural chaotic dire beast. It was even a peak chaotic dire beast, only one step away from a chaotic spirit beast. Although the other party was muddle-headed and had yet to develop sentience, it could still sense the huge threat from Lin Feng. There was a crackling sound. Lin Feng flicked his finger, and a sphere of flames quickly flew out. In an instant, it turned into a huge fireball that burned fiercely. It instantly enveloped the chaotic dire beast's body, and reduced it to ashes the next moment. With the power of Lin Feng's chaotic spirit flames at this moment, even without using the spirit flame hallowed body, he could easily burn a perfected lord to ashes, let alone a mere chaotic dire beast. Lin Feng walked into the cave under the underground river. Strangely enough, this underground river was very cold, but the cave was very hot. Moreover, the deeper he went, the hotter it became. It was incomparably hot. Suddenly, a wisp of flames appeared in the darkness in front of him. However, these flames were not monochromatic but colorful. Lin Feng felt that the spirit flame hallowed body in his body was even becoming restless. There must be chaotic spirit flames inside. Swoosh! When Lin Feng entered the cave, he saw the surging magma below. In the magma, there was actually a huge, dark red flower. It seemed as if every leaf was composed of flames. There were a total of 7 leaves, which were 7 types of flames. Could it be the legendary iridescent spirit flame flower? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. An iridescent spirit flame flower. It was rumored that it contained 7 types of chaotic spirit flames, and it could only bloom after being nurtured for more than 100,000 years. This kind of flower had astonishing effects on cultivating fire-type body-tempering divine abilities. It could even directly propel a chaotic dire beast to metamorphose into a chaotic spirit beast. At the very least, it could improve its physique. Such a supreme treasure was only heard of in legends, but no one had ever seen it. He did not expect to encounter it on this new chaotic continent now. However, although the iridescent spirit flame flower was precious, Lin Feng actually valued the 7 leaves more, because they represented 7 special types of chaotic spirit flames. Currently, Lin Feng had already refined a total of 35 types of chaotic spirit flames with his spirit flame hallowed body. If he refined another 7 types of chaotic spirit flames, there was no knowing how much the power of his hallowed body would increase. Lin Feng reached out and grabbed the iridescent spirit flame flower. The 7 types of chaotic spirit flames were hidden among these 7 leaves. There was no time to lose. Lin Feng did not hesitate at all. He immediately mobilized the spirit flame hallowed body and devoured the 7 leaves directly with his body. Then, he began to refine these 7 types of chaotic spirit flames. In the 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce, perfected Lord Windblade rushed to the Chamber of Commerce headquarters. Your Majesty, I have something to report. Perfected Lord Windblade's clearance was not high enough, and he did not even have the contact information of the perfected deities in the Chamber of Commerce. Hence, he could only contact them in a hurry after rushing back to the Chamber of Commerce. Come in. An indolent voice came from inside. Perfected Lord Windblade hurriedly walked in, and saw a tall man sitting cross-legged inside. Hence, he lowered his head and said excitedly, Your Majesty, on the way back from traveling, I discovered a place suspected to be a chaotic continent. However, it's shrouded by a divine array, so I can't be sure. A chaotic continent? Perfected deity Thousand Stars' interest was piqued. Although the Chamber of Commerce controlled many chaotic continents, who would complain about more chaotic continents? Continue. Your Majesty, there are no records of any chaotic continents in that place at all, nor is it the sphere of influence of any perfected deity or Chamber of Commerce. However, there is a divine array sealing it off. That's what aroused my suspicion. Moreover, that divine array is for concealment. If not for an array master in the caravan, it would probably be hard to discover it. With such careful concealment, it's probably not a chaotic continent under a large faction or a perfected deity. It's very likely that it's just a chaotic continent discovered by a perfected lord without a powerful faction. Hearing this, perfected deity Thousand Stars' eyes lit up. If it's really as you say, you'll receive a great merit. All right, you may leave. Leave the exact location and coordinates behind. I'll make a trip personally. Yes, your majesty. I'll take my leave. Perfected Lord Windblade was thrilled. If it was really a new chaotic continent, he would have made a great contribution. He definitely wouldn't be the one taking the lion's share, but his reward would definitely be considerable. The 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce was still relatively fair in this aspect. If not for the fact that he was not strong, even perfected Lord Windblade would have wanted to seize this chaotic continent for himself. Unfortunately, even if the other party was very likely a perfected lord, the ability to set up that divine array meant they were not someone an ordinary perfected lord like him could deal with. A new chaotic continent? Interesting. If it's really a new chaotic continent, I might have gained a lot this time. In the secret chamber, a smile appeared on perfected deity 1,000 Stars' lips. Perfected deity All Desire. Someone from the Chamber of Commerce has discovered what's suspected to be a new chaotic continent. I'll go take a look. Everything in the Chamber of Commerce will depend on you. Perfected deity 1,000 Star did not forget to inform perfected deity All Desire. Huh? A new chaotic continent? Xianxia, I have to be careful. It might be a trap. A trap? Don't worry. If it's really a trap, I'll inform you immediately. With that, perfected deity 1,000 Star warped space directly and headed for the new chaotic continent. Although some traps specializing in robbing perfected deities had indeed appeared recently, other perfected deities could not be so generous as to use a whole new chaotic continent as a trap. Hence, perfected deity 1,000 Star determined that this was most likely really a new chaotic continent. Buzz. In the cold and dark chaos, circles of spatial ripples constantly surged, spreading in all directions. Perfected deity 1,000 Star warped out of space. This is the place. Perfected deity 1,000 Star saw the obscure traces of fluctuation of the divine array in the chaotic void at a glance. Ordinary perfected lords could not tell that there was a divine array here, but he was a perfected deity and knew the chaotic rules extremely well. How could he not sense the traces of fluctuation of the chaotic rules here? It's really a divine array. However, it's set up by a divine array spirit treasure. If it's a perfected deity, they would definitely be able to set up a divine array personally. It's probably not a perfected deity. Then, inside, a trace of excitement flashed across perfected deity 1,000 Stars' eyes. Then he pointed gently. Swoosh. Traces of ripples appeared in the divine array, revealing a huge chaotic continent under the divine array. It's actually a new chaotic continent, and it has never been excavated by anyone before. What luck! Perfected deity 1,000 Star was overjoyed. Then he walked through the gap in the divine array. It's really a medium-sized chaotic continent that has just been formed. In terms of abundance of resources, it's not inferior to a large chaotic continent. Perfected deity 1,000 Star was overjoyed. Even he had never encountered a place with resources comparable to a large chaotic continent. Most of the chaotic continents under the 1,000 Star Chamber of Commerce were only medium and small-scale chaotic continents. As for whether this chaotic continent was discovered by others first, perfected deity 1,000 Star did not care at all. If I want to occupy this chaotic continent, I still have to clear some obstacles. Let me see who discovered this chaotic continent. Perfected deity 1,000 Star immediately closed his eyes and began to mobilize the chaotic rules to investigate the situation on the entire chaotic continent. Actually, the moment perfected deity 1,000 Star tore open the divine array and stepped into the chaotic continent, someone had already discovered the situation in advance. Huh? Someone challenged the array and entered the chaotic continent. Yuan Jinggong's expression changed slightly. Although he had not personally set up this divine array, the divine array spirit treasure he had bought back then also had the effect of monitoring. Hence, Yuan Jinggang could detect any movement in the divine array. Buzz. Yuan Jinggang waved his hand and began to mobilize the divine array to monitor the entire chaotic continent. Soon, an image appeared in the void. It was perfected deity 1,000 Star standing in the void, and the chaotic rules around him were even distorting. Huh? I found you. As if sensing something, perfected deity 1,000 Star suddenly raised his head and flicked his finger. Thud. The void exploded, and even the divine array cracked. The scene in front of Yuan Zhengang instantly disappeared. Like ripples in water, it spread in all directions and quickly dissipated. Perfected deity thousand star. Yuan Zhenggang's expression changed drastically. Ever since he learned that the thousand-star Chamber of Commerce might discover this place, he investigated the thousand-star Chamber of Commerce in detail. He knew the only two perfected deities of the thousand-star Chamber of Commerce like the back of his hand. Naturally, he recognized the man at a glance. He was the founder of the thousand-star Chamber of Commerce, perfected deity thousand star. Yuan Zhengang was originally worried about the people from the thousand-star Chamber of Commerce. Now that he saw that even perfected deity thousand star had come personally, he could no longer sit still. He immediately sent a message to everyone. This was especially the case for Lin Feng. He hurriedly sent a message. Perfected Lord Lin, perfected deity thousand star is already here. Prepare for battle. In the quiet underground river, the rolling magma showed no signs of eruption at all. The temperature here was very high, but Lin Feng was sitting cross-legged on the shore by the magma, his entire body flickering with rings of light. These were all chaotic spirit flames. 1, 2, 3. A total of 7 chaotic spirit flames were completely refined into Lin Feng's body in an extremely short period of time. The addition of every chaotic spirit flame actually strengthened the spirit flame hallowed body, or rather, the foundation of the hallowed body. The spirit flame hallowed body was mainly composed of chaotic spirit flames. It absorbed the various spirit flames in the chaos and fused them into one, thereby forming a supreme hallowed body. Lin Feng could clearly sense that his spirit flame hallowed body had further improved by a lot. In the past, there were 35 types of chaotic spirit flames. Now, after fusing another 7 types of chaotic spirit flames, he had already fused a total of 42 types of chaotic spirit flames. Its power had already increased by a lot compared to the previous 34 chaotic spirit flames. Relying on the power of his hallowed body, Lin Feng no longer feared any perfected deity now. Swoosh! Lin Feng opened his eyes. This new chaotic continent really had infinite potential. It was like a world that has just begun. The newly formed chaotic continent contained all kinds of treasures and opportunities. This chaotic continent could not be handed over to others. It had to be firmly controlled. Buzz. Suddenly, Lin Feng's communication token vibrated. Huh? Perfected deity thousand star is here. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. He had just tasted the benefits of this chaotic continent. He was just about to search around again and see if he could find some more chaotic spirit flames. Unexpectedly, perfected deity thousand star had already arrived. So what if it's a perfected deity? What's there to fear? A sharp glint flashed across Lin Feng's eyes. Then his figure flashed, and he flew out of the underground river. They're here. Yuan Zhenggang's expression was solemn. Beside him, most of the perfected lords of the Mutual Assistance Alliance had already rushed over. Since they wanted to deal with perfected deity thousand star, they had to gather all their strength, no matter what. No one knew the inside story of Lin Feng's feat of slaying a god. They were all top-notch perfected lords, so they could still be of some use. Boom! However, seeing the might of perfected deity thousand star from afar, all the perfected lords' hearts could not help but palpitate. A perfected deity. In the chaos, perfected deities almost represented invincibility. No one below the level of a perfected deity could contend with a perfected deity. Even with the appearance of a top perfected lord who could slay a perfected deity like Lin Feng, other perfected lords, even top-notch perfected lords, could not help but feel that they would be inferior to a perfected deity. It was not because of concepts, but because of strength. Perfected deities were invincible. It was the conclusion from countless years of battle with countless perfected deities with absolute strength. It was probably only a rumor that a perfected lord could kill a perfected deity above his level. Previously, some perfected lords of the Mutual Assistance Alliance had even made bold claims that if more than 10 top-notch perfected lords joined forces, they could even resist a perfected deity. But now that perfected deity thousand star had arrived, the courage in the hearts of all the perfected lords seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Seeing this scene, the hearts of Yuan Zhengang, perfected Lord Long, and the others could not help but sink. Everyone, there's no need to worry. Perfected Lord Lin will arrive soon. Let's hold off Perfected Deity Thousand Star for a while. Yuan Jinggang sent a voice transmission to all the Perfected Lords. As soon as they heard that Lin Feng was about to arrive, although these Perfected Lords were still a little worried, they more or less had some confidence. The reputation of the top Perfected Lord shook the chaos. This was a solid battle record, and recently his reputation was at its peak. Swoosh! Perfected Deity Thousand Star stopped and looked down at all the Perfected Lords in a high and mighty manner. Greetings, Perfected Deity Thousand Star. Oh? You recognize me? Of course we do. How can we not know the famous Perfected Deity Thousand Star of Holy City Styx? We are from the Mutual Assistance Alliance in Holy City Prima Mobile. We discovered this chaotic continent first. If Perfected Deity wishes to visit, we naturally welcome you with open arms. Yuan Jinggong's tone was respectful, but his attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. It would naturally be best if they could rebuke Perfected Deity Thousand Star with words. After all, even with Lin Feng, the famous and influential top Perfected Lord, they did not have much confidence in fighting with a Perfected Deity. Mutual Assistance Alliance? Perfected Deity Thousand Star shook his head. He had investigated all the factions in the 7 holy cities of chaos. He should have heard of all the major and minor factions, as long as there was a perfected deity presiding over them. However, he had never heard of this Mutual Assistance Alliance. It was either a small faction with no perfected deity presiding over it, or a newly established faction, which most likely had no perfected deities either. Otherwise, Yuan Zhengong would definitely have mentioned it. Hence, Perfected Deity Thousand Stars' expression turned cold. He said in a low voice, "There's no need to bluff me. This chaotic continent has clearly not been excavated yet. How can mere perfected lords like you guard it? I see that it's not easy for you to cultivate either. Why don't you join my 1,000-star Chamber of Commerce? When you guard this chaotic continent in the future, I naturally won't mistreat you." As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of all the perfected lords changed. The situation suddenly became tense. Perfected Deity Thousand Star, the alliance leader of our Mutual Assistance Alliance, is the top chaotic perfected lord who killed Perfected Deity Fortune, Perfected Lord Lin. Yuan Zhenggang knew that Perfected Deity Thousand Star did not take perfected lords like them seriously, so he could only give Lin Feng's name. He hoped that Lin Feng's name, which had been at its peak recently, could make Perfected Deity Thousand Star at least somewhat wary. The top perfected lord, Lin Feng? Perfected Deity Thousand Star's eyes narrowed slightly, and he was also a little stunned. Of course he knew about Lin Feng. Recently, Lin Feng's name had spread throughout the chaos. Even though he did not go out much, he had heard of Lin Feng's name. The top perfected lord of chaos had killed Perfected Deity Fortune above his level, accomplishing the feat of slaying a god. All these news were simply inspiring to cultivators below the level of perfected deities. However, to perfected deities, those were news they least wanted to hear, and even the person they hated the most. No perfected deity had any admiration for Lin Feng. They only had revulsion and loathing. Perfected Deity Thousand Star indeed disliked and loathed Lin Feng very much. He even felt that Perfected Deity Fortune was a fool. He had simply disgraced the reputation of perfected deities. A dignified perfected deity had actually been killed by a mere perfected lord. Even if Perfected Deity Fortune reincarnated and cultivated to the peak, he would probably suffer endless ridicule and humiliation that he would never be able to erase. Is that so? How dare you threaten me with a junior who's only a perfected lord? Since you can't bear to part with this chaotic continent, you can spend the rest of your days here. A vicious glint flashed across Perfected Deity Thousand Star's eyes, and he extended a hand. Countless chaotic rules shook. A huge palm condensed in the void, blotting out everything. This was a divine ability, and a rule-tempering divine ability at that. How terrifying was a divine ability used by a perfected deity? Just look at the solemn expressions of Yuan Zhenggang and the other 17 top-notch perfected lords now. All of them were top-notch perfected lords, and all of them had cultivated divine abilities. However, at this moment they actually felt immense pressure when facing perfected deity Thousand Star. Fight! Yuan Zhengang had no way out either. All the other perfected lords had no way out. From the moment the Mutual Assistance Alliance was established, they had known that this day would come. However, this moment had arrived in advance. We are also top-notch perfected lords, and more than 10 top-notch perfected lords at that. Why can't we contend with a perfected deity? That's right. Perfected Lord Lin could even kill a perfected deity in battle. How can more than 10 top-notch perfected lords here not contend with a perfected deity? Haha. Let's join forces to slay a god today too. At the thought that Lin Feng could also slay a god, how could the combined forces of more than 10 top-notch perfected lords be inferior to Lin Feng? Hence, all of them were filled with battle intent, and there was no longer any fear in their eyes. It would not be an exaggeration to call a cultivator who could cultivate to the level of a top-notch perfected lord a semi-perfected deity. However, the gap between a semi-perfected deity and a perfected deity was worlds apart. Ants! Seeing the group of perfected lords below, who were filled with battle intent and clamoring to slay gods, perfected deity Thousand Star's eyes were filled with coldness and disdain. Since when did perfected lords dare to dream of slaying gods? Boom! Perfected deity Thousand Star slammed his palm down. It was as if countless stars were smashing down. The surrounding space became incomparably thick and heavy. This was the divine ability of the perfected deity Thousand Star, the Thousand Star divine ability. It could restrain enemies in an instant, and even contained heavy gravity. This divine ability was also the divine ability that made perfected deity Thousand Star's name. Relying on this divine ability, perfected deity Thousand Star dominated the chaos without any defeats. He was not inferior to even a perfected deity of the same level. Yuan Zhengang and the other 17 perfected lords also used their respective divine abilities. It was dazzling. When used together, the power was also very astonishing. If not for the fact that they were facing a perfected deity, the combined forces of the 17 top-notch perfected lords would be enough to sweep through all factions. However, they were facing a perfected deity, an invincible perfected deity. Boom! The Thousand Star divine ability collided fiercely with a total of 17 divine abilities. There was nothing fancy about this. In a head-on clash, the 17 perfected lords battle intense soared, and they were even filled with pride, ready to join forces to slay a god. However, as perfected deity Thousand Star's divine ability blasted out, it crushed the divine abilities of the 17 perfected lords with great ease. The terrifying pressure instantly dealt a heavy blow to the 17 top-notch perfected lords. Thump! With just one strike of the divine ability, countless perfected lords were severely injured. If not for the combined forces of the 17 perfected lords, this divine ability would probably be enough to kill countless perfected lords. A crushing defeat. An unprecedented crushing defeat. Mere ants. Perfected deity Thousand Star was high and almighty. He looked at the 17 top-notch perfected lords with pity and coldness. Perhaps these 17 top-notch perfected lords were famed among perfected lords, and each dominated a region. However, in the eyes of perfected deity Thousand Star, they were not worth mentioning at all. They were still ants. All below the level of perfected deities were insignificant. How could this be? Perfected deity Prime Sky muttered softly. Perfected deity Thousand Star's cold gaze pierced into the depths of the 17 top-notch perfected lords' hearts like needles. All of them were top-notch perfected lords, and all of them dominated a region. They had already reached the limit of what perfected lords could achieve. They had thought that the 17 perfected lords could sweep through anything. Even if they were not a match for a perfected deity, they should be able to contend with one. After all, Lin Feng could kill a perfected deity alone. Why couldn't they? After clashing head-on with perfected deity Thousand Star, the 17 top-notch perfected lords, who were originally full of confidence, immediately felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Invincible. He was really invincible. Forget about the 17 perfected lords, Even 27 or 37 top-notch perfected lords were far from being a match for a perfected deity. That perfected deities were invincible was no joke. In fact, they were even a little in despair. Since the perfected deities were invincible and so terrifying, how did Lin Feng kill a perfected deity above his level and accomplish the feat of slaying a god? Not only did the 17 top-notch perfected lords not know, even perfected deity Thousand Star did not know. It was hard for him to imagine how a perfected lord who could not withstand a single blow could kill a perfected deity above his level. He even felt that it was an exaggeration. He did not know how unlucky perfected deity fortune must be to actually be killed by a perfected lord. It was simply a disgrace to perfected deities. You still dare to resist me? What mutual assistance alliance? What top perfected lord? How dare a mere perfected lord claim to be able to slay a perfected deity above his level? You're just ants. Perfected deity Thousand Stars' words made all the perfected lords despondent. All of them had grim expressions. They lowered their heads, but no one refuted it, nor could they refute it. They had lost. They had lost completely. They could not contend with perfected deity Thousand Star at all. All 17 perfected lords like themselves had all lost. What was the use of Lin Feng, a single perfected lord, arriving? Is that so? Who said that perfected lords are ants? Suddenly, a stream of light flew over from afar in an instant. The stream of light stopped in the void, revealing a figure standing with his hands behind his back. His body emitted a powerful aura, and even the surrounding chaotic rules were distorted. Alliance leader, it's Alliance leader. Alliance leader, you're finally here. Perfected Lord Lin, the perfected Lord Lin who killed a perfected deity above his level. We've already lost. We are not a match for a perfected deity. Many perfected lords were already in despair. They looked at Lin Feng's figure in the void with very complex expressions. Previously, they had been arrogant towards Lin Feng, and even felt deep down that Lin Feng was only SOSO. But now, they had to rely on Lin Feng, and even hoped that Lin Feng could turn the tide. However, the strength of perfected deity Thousand Star was deeply engraved in their minds. That was simply invincible power that destroyed all their confidence. Could Lin Feng contend with perfected deity Thousand Star? Even perfected Lord Long and perfected Lord Yuan Zhengong, who trusted Lin Feng the most, were very nervous. Ha! Perfected deity Thousand Star's eyes narrowed slightly, but a trace of solemnity appeared in them. He could clearly sense that the chaotic rules around Lin Feng had actually distorted, and could not approach him. As a perfected deity, he knew very well what this meant. Although he disdained Lin Feng, the top perfected lord, and believed even less that Lin Feng could kill a perfected deity above his level, Lin Feng's reputation was definitely not groundless. Hence, perfected deity Thousand Stars' expression also turned solemn. Lin Feng stood with his hands behind his back. Seeing the many severely injured perfected lords below, he naturally knew what happened. Perfected deity Thousand Star, you said that all perfected lords are ants? But in my eyes, you're just an ant. Boom. As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, everyone's minds went blank, as if thunderstruck. An ant. Lin Feng actually considered perfected deity Thousand Star an ant. Forget about saying such words, they could not even think about it. Perfected deities had their pride. They were gods, omnipotent with infinite divine abilities, and stood at the highest point that countless living beings could reach. They occupied the highest position, looked down on all living beings, and treated all living beings as ants. This was only natural. However, all living beings absolutely could not treat perfected deity as ants. This was putting the cart before the horse, and a great disrespect. How dare you? Lin Feng, you've already embarked on the path of evil, and are beyond redemption. Today, I'll destroy a scourge like you and send you to reincarnation. I hope you won't be so ignorant in your next life, let alone embark on the evil path again. Perfected deity Thousand Star did not fly into a rage. In fact, his tone was very calm. However, in reality, everyone knew that perfected deity Thousand Star was angered. Moreover, he was very furious, and even filled with killing intent. Lin Feng's words of offended perfected deity thousand star, or rather all perfected deities. Perfected deities were gods, so they naturally had the authority of gods. The authority of gods were not to be violated lightly. Hence, even if it was not for this chaotic continent, just for this sentence, perfected deity thousand star would definitely send Lin Feng to reincarnation. Thousand star divine ability. Perfected deity thousand star's gaze was cold. With a wave of his hand, it was as if the world was spinning, and the stars in the sky lost their color at once. All that was left was the heavy gravity pressing down hard on Lin Feng, as if it was about to crush Lin Feng into mush in an instant. Moreover, beams of light that filled the sky descended. Every beam of light was enough to crush any perfected lord into dust. Even a perfected deity had to use a divine ability to resist it. Lin Feng could even sense that even if he used a chaotic spirit treasure, this chaotic spirit treasure would probably be shattered in an instant. This was a divine ability, the divine ability of perfected deity thousand star. Such was the devastating power of the divine ability. Ever since perfected deity thousand star used his divine ability, Lin Feng knew that he was very strong, far stronger than perfected deity fortune back then. No wonder he could establish the huge thousand-star chamber of commerce. In fact, perfected deity thousand star was even slightly stronger than perfected deity absolutist and perfected deity prime sky, or rather, on par with them. However, so what? Back then, Lin Feng had even resisted the combined forces of 3 perfected deities, let alone when there's only perfected deity thousand star. Spirit flame hallowed body. Lin Feng's gaze was cold. Dense halos rose rapidly behind him, making Lin Feng look incomparably holy. Every halo represented a chaotic spirit flame. But now, Lin Feng already had a total of 42 types of chaotic spirit flames, and the halos behind him had also increased to 42. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng's body expanded rapidly, becoming 100,000 feet tall. This was Lin Feng's hallowed body. It was the complete spirit flame hallowed body, a 100,000 feet tall hallowed body that exerted a terrifying pressure. The surrounding void even distorted. No chaotic rule could affect Lin Feng's hallowed body. Great power flowed through Lin Feng's body. Break! Lin Feng shouted like a giant. He threw a punch with raw power, but the power of the 42 chaotic spirit flames did not manifest. However, in the next moment, the void shattered, and terrifying shockwaves spread hundreds of kilometers away. Even perfected deity thousand star felt terrified. The 42 chaotic spirit flames were far stronger than Lin Feng had imagined. When the thousand-star divine ability struck Lin Feng's spirit flame hallowed body hard, the 100,000 feet tall hallowed body did not move. The raging flames surged. Perfected deities are just ants. Lin Feng looked down from above. At this moment, he was also looking down at perfected deity thousand star. Perfected deity thousand star's eyes had already widened, and there was a trace of fear in them. He was not a match. His divine ability was really not a match. The spirit flame hallowed body was pure strength and pure destruction. A perfected deity could not suppress it even if they mobilized all the chaotic rules. Instead, it was getting closer and closer to perfected deity thousand star, and was about to land in the next moment. Perfected deity all desire, come and save me quickly. Perfected deity thousand star's expression changed drastically. He was finally terrified. He immediately asked for help from perfected deity all desire, and forcefully tossed out 7 or 8 chaotic spirit treasures. Every one of them was a defensive chaotic spirit treasure. Bang, bang, bang. However, it was useless. All the chaotic spirit treasures that came into contact with Lin Feng's hallowed body were blasted apart by a single palm strike from Lin Feng's hallowed body, and reduced to dust. Lin Feng's strike was unstoppable. Even chaotic spirit treasures and divine abilities seemed to be useless. It was vicious and invincible. At this moment, Lin Feng's 100,000 feet tall hallowed body was just so ferocious. It was as if he was even more of a perfected deity than a perfected deity. He was simply a terrifying god of war from a primordial era, filled with infinite power that could blast apart the chaos. Lin Feng's gaze, on the other hand, was very calm, even filled with pity. Perfected deity Thousand Stars' heart ached. Wasn't this his gaze just now? Wasn't his gaze filled with pity? An ant. So in Lin Feng's eyes, he was really just an ant. Something that was holding out in the heart of perfected deity Thousand Star shattered instantly like glass, and huge cracks appeared. Could never recover to its original state again. If even perfected deity Thousand Star was in such a state, perfected Lord Long, perfected Lord Yuan Zhengang, and the other top-notch perfected lords were even more dumbfounded. Their eyes widened in disbelief. They knew that Lin Feng was very strong. There was no smoke without fire. How could the top perfected lord, who could kill a perfected deity above his level and complete the feat of slaying a god, be ordinary? However, previously, the 17 top-notch perfected lords had been ambitious and tried to join forces to slay a god. Unfortunately, they did not slay a god, but were almost slain by him instead. They suffered a crushing defeat, and their confidence was shattered. It was as if perfected deities had become great and invincible entities once more. Their confidence was gone. They were not optimistic about even Lin Feng, even the top perfected lord, and did not have any confidence. But now, what did they see? Lin Feng's 10,000 feet tall, hallowed body casually shattered the divine ability of perfected deity Thousand Star, as if he was swatting a fly. All the shockwaves from the divine ability could not even allow him to break free from Lin Feng's palm. With just a palm, it was as if perfected deity Thousand Star was reduced to an ant, powerless to resist before Lin Feng. That's right, an ant. At this moment, the behavior of perfected deity Thousand Star was really like an ant. It was unimaginable and incomprehensible. A perfected deity was actually as powerless as an ant when facing a perfected lord. So it's not that the alliance leader is arrogant, but that we're too ignorant. A perfected lord can really slay gods. That's right. If I haven't witnessed this scene with my own eyes, I wouldn't be able to believe it, either. In the eyes of the alliance leader, so what if he's a perfected deity? He's just an ant. Ha ha ha, even if we lose, there's still the alliance leader who considers perfected deities ants. So what if they're perfected deities? With the alliance leader around, slaying gods is nothing. At least it proves that a perfected lord can really slay gods. At this moment, the 17 top-notch perfected lords were completely loyal. In the past, they might have harbored all kinds of thoughts and ideas when establishing the Mutual Assistance Alliance. But now, all their thoughts and ideas dissipated. They had already completely considered themselves members of the Mutual Assistance Alliance. With a great entity like Lin Feng, who saw perfected deity as ants, what was there for them to be dissatisfied about? Perhaps one day, they would also be able to attain Lin Feng's current achievements. Boom! Just as Lin Feng's huge palm was about to strike perfected deity Thousand Star to death, the chaotic void suddenly exploded. Even this chaotic continent was on the verge of collapse at this moment. A huge hand descended from the chaos and collided fiercely with the palm of Lin Feng's spirit flame hallowed body. Ha! At this moment, all kinds of negative emotions appeared in Lin Feng. Moreover, he seemed to be hallucinating. His mind was a mess. He felt as if he was back on his home planet, or as if he was still transcending in the origin universe. An illusion? It had been a long time since Lin Feng had an illusion. His internal universe could suppress everything. However, as Lin Feng was already used to not using his internal universe, without the cosmic power in his body to suppress everything, he fell into an illusion instead. However, when Lin Feng came back to his senses, he only circulated a little of the cosmic power in his body before immediately waking up. The 100,000 feet tall true form of his hallowed body stared coldly at the two figures below. That's right, there were two figures. One of them was perfected deity Thousand Star, and the other figure was wearing a patterned robe. He looked incomparably handsome, and even had a demonic charm to him. There was no mistake about it. It was perfected deity All Desire, the other perfected deity of the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce. It was rumored that there were two perfected deities in the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce. Perfected deity Thousand Star established the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce, but the one who was really the mainstay was perfected deity All Desire. This perfected deity All Desire had a strange divine ability that could cause people to fall into an illusion without realizing it. Even a perfected deity could not withstand it. He could be considered one of the most bizarre perfected deities. With the cooperation of perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star, almost no one was willing to provoke them except top-notch perfected deities. This was the real reason why the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce controlled so many chaotic continents. But now, the two perfected deities of the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce were both here. Perfected deity All Desire, you came just in time. I was just a little bit away from reincarnation. Perfected deity Thousand Star's expression was very dark, and even a little fearful. He was a dignified perfected deity. Even though he had fought with many perfected deities in the past, his Thousand Star divine ability was also very strong. He had almost never encountered such danger. Just now, he had actually almost fallen, and at the hands of a mere perfected lord, slaying a god. So Lin Feng, the top perfected lord, really had the capability to slay gods. I know you. You are the top perfected lord who killed perfected deity Fortune as a perfected lord, and accomplished the feat of slaying a god, Lin Feng. Perfected deity All Desire stood with his hands behind his back, his expression very calm. Even perfected deity Thousand Star gradually calmed down when he saw perfected deity All Desire arrive. He was a perfected deity. Even if he almost fell, he could quickly adjust his mentality and recover his composure. Moreover, he knew how powerful perfected deity All Desire was. If he joined forces with perfected deity All Desire, apart from those top-notch perfected deities with greater divine abilities, who else could be their match? I know you too, perfected deity All Desire. I've heard that when perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star join forces, they're practically invincible among all below top-notch perfected deities. It's just exaggerated praise. The two of them did not seem to have any grudges at all. It was as if they had not fought just now. Instead, they behaved like old friends chatting about family matters. However, the calmer they were, the more likely it was the calm before the storm. Lin Feng did not dare to underestimate this perfected deity All Desire. At his level, what illusion could confound him? However, it was not just him. Even other perfected deities had been dragged into the illusion of the perfected deity All Desire before. This was no longer just an illusion, but some kind of divine ability cultivated by combining illusions and using certain chaotic rules. There was even a rumor that the divine ability of perfected deity All Desire could use the desire of any living being to drag them into infinite illusions. They would be immersed in layer after layer of illusions indefinitely, and unable to remove themselves at all. There were even some perfected lords whose memories had been tampered with by the illusions. Their temperaments changed drastically, and they became the most loyal servants of perfected deity All Desire. This was the most terrifying thing. Illusions were not terrifying. What was terrifying were illusions that could change one's thoughts and temperament, and control life and death. This kind of divine ability was too bizarre and sinister. No wonder not many perfected deities were willing to offend the Thousand Star Chamber of Commerce. They were actually unwilling to offend perfected deity All Desire. The atmosphere between the two of them was very calm, but the undercurrents beneath the calmness were very odd. Even perfected Lord Long and the others did not dare to breathe loudly. Everyone knew how dangerous the situation Lin Feng was in at this moment. Lin Feng had to face two perfected deities, and there was perfected deity All Desire, who had always been famed for his bizarre abilities. This situation was even more difficult than facing the three perfected deities back then. Even though Lin Feng had shown an invincible attitude of treating perfected deities as ants just now, the pressure from perfected deity All Desire was still too great. What should we do? What should we do now? There's nothing we can do. This is a battle between perfected deities. We're not even qualified to interfere. A perfected deity. If we don't become perfected deities, we're indeed insignificant. After all, not every perfected lord is like alliance leader. All we can do now is to control the divine array and protect this chaotic continent. When divine abilities clash between perfected deities, even a large chaotic continent might be at risk of collapse. Yuan Zhenggang, perfected Lord Long, and the other top-notch perfected lords felt a deep sense of powerlessness now. Faced with perfected deities, perfected lords like them could not resist at all. They could not even hold them off for a moment. They could only let Lin Feng fight the two great perfected deities alone. Swoosh! A breeze blew past, and no one felt the slightest chill. At this moment, perfected deity All Desire said, "This chaotic continent has just been formed. It would be a pity to break it." That's right. No matter who wins between us, this chaotic continent should be a spoil of war. We shouldn't take our anger out on a chaotic continent. If we break it, no one can get anything. Lin Feng and perfected deity All Desire smiled at each other. They could see the battle intent and even killing intent in each other's eyes. Then let's fight in the chaos. Gladly, the two of them laughed aloud. Then, perfected deity All Desire and perfected deity Thousand Star flew out of the chaotic continent first. A mere divine array naturally could not stop them. It was even torn apart directly. The divine array was in tatters and could no longer conceal what's within. Lin Feng glanced at Yuan Jinggan and the others, then said indifferently, "You will protect this chaotic continent. Since you've been discovered, a battle must break out sooner or later. In that case, why don't you show the flag of our mutual assistance alliance openly? If I win this battle, it can establish the status of our mutual assistance alliance. We can even openly occupy this chaotic continent and use it as the foundation of our mutual assistance alliance. If I fail, we'll forsake everything." With that, Lin Feng transformed into a stream of light and flew into the chaos as well. Yuan Jinggang looked at Lin Feng's departing figure. Then, he gritted his teeth and said, "That's right. Alliance leader's idea is well thought out. This is both a crisis and an opportunity. Everyone, mobilize your networks and start building momentum immediately. At least spread the word to the 7 holy cities of chaos. A battle like this between the top perfected lord, perfected deity All Desire, and perfected deity Thousand Star is enough to cause a sensation. If we succeed, our mutual assistance alliance can take the opportunity to ascend to power. If we lose, we'll forsake everything." This was a deadly battle and also a life-or-death gamble. All the perfected deities knew that this battle was no longer just about competing over a chaotic continent, but a life-or-death battle for them.